Okay, let's move on to the next part, which is sectorial indexes. So like I mentioned a lot of times, when we look at the market, when we look at a particular stock in general, before we decide whether we want to long or short, we don't refer to the market first. We will refer to the sector ETFs first, and then thereafter we refer to the market. So think of it as this layer, right? From market, then you look at sector, and then you look at individual stocks. If you want to long a stock, the sector should be conducive, market should be conducive. If you want to long, if you want to short a stock, um, sector should show bearishness, market should show bearishness. If you want to long a stock, sector is showing bearishness, then don't bother, right? Even if the market is bullish, right? Because stocks generally follow their sector first before they follow the market. So in general, this is something you guys need to be cognizant of. So for this week's overview, you can see that I actually highlighted quite a few of the sector ETF. So you all can see here and the relevant comments. For the sake of the length of this video, I won't be going through everything, just some of the key ones that I think is important to note. And then after I go through the sectors, I'll be going through some of the key stocks which I think could be a good setup, right? So now let's move on. Maybe you can take a look at the first sector, XSW. So I've been calling for XSW bullishness since here already. It has rallied. Same thing. I do think XSW is gonna head higher to at least this zone. Yes, I mentioned that there's limited upside to the market. I realized that the market could chop, but then market could still go up. Oh, sorry, market could still chop, but XSW go up, right? So this would be a classic example of a sector rotation. What could be happening is that you see semicon starts pulling back, but software starts heading up, and thereby the market essentially can still hover at its current state, right? So I've been calling for a software sector rotation, and it looks like it might finally be here. So XSW, I expect it to eventually go higher to actually meet this red box, right? Or resistance, supply, whatever you call it, right? So some of the key XSW setup that haven't ran, which I think is very possible. First is app loving corporation. I do think I like this setup. It created order flow order flow breakout and started chopping here. Can go to lower time frame to potentially hunt for entry. For those of you that is interested in this stock, right? And next, Microsoft, long time favorite for investors. I think Microsoft is still cheap relative to the overall market, and then it's setting up for order flow breakout here. It already shifted prior already. Went back, touched this demand zone. I'm expecting Microsoft to continue climbing higher. So please pay attention, right? Next, ADP. Very similar setup to AppLovin Corporation. So they created order flow breakout here. Didn't really shift to the upside. To me, a shift will only be considered here. But if software is gonna break out, I do think that ADP can follow, and then they're gearing out for a tiny order flow breakout, right? So this is something you guys can consider. Zoom. So this is just a pullback to previous high or the 20 EMA. Right, so personally I'll start scouting for longs here. So that's on software. Next, let's take a look at XLP, which I have been calling for a damn long time as well, right? I have been calling for XLP since here maybe, and then XLP just recently broke higher again. I do think I see a case for actually XLP going up to break all-time high, right? So this here's another order flow breakout. So let's take a look at some of the key XLP stocks, which I will need to find. 1 second, please. Yes, so let's start with Costco. Very similar setup. In fact, it already broke out of the maybe this realization. This is more of an order flow view. Expecting Costco to hit higher, but as usual, you guys will want to long on a pullback, right? Let's see. So maybe you can pull back somewhere here and then go higher, right? Try to hunt on it on a lower time frame. Coca-Cola is another one, very similar setup to XLP. Personally, I got along somewhere here. Stops around slightly below this low here. Yeah, I'm still holding. So it's currently running about 3R, But I do think that if XLP can continue heading higher, we have more room to run. Next, Pepsi. Um, Not really a strong stock within the XLP space, but this would be a shift once it broke out. But I will be trying to snipe for entry somewhere within this demand zone. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking for. Walmart, very nice setup over here. I do think that Walmart can go higher to break all-time high if XLP continue rallying. So I'll look to hunt for some entry in this green zone demand over here. Currently don't think there's anything much. I do think that it's gonna come down to break this come down to break this low before we see anything consequential of a reversal. So I want to see something like this, right? Next, let's take a look at CL. Anything? Oh, beautiful. Um, for those of you that I hope you guys realize that CL actually has a very similar setup to XLP as well. Let's compare the two chart, right? Shifted here and then breakout. Same thing, shifted here and then breakout. So same thing, looking for longs. I'm trying to hunt for longs in XLP as well. Sorry, CL. So that's on XLP. Next, let's take a look at maybe let's take a look at XLY. So earlier last week, I called out that yes, we did an order flow breakout here, but we are currently we did an order flow breakout, but at this point we could be forming a range, which is as expected. And if my thesis were to hold right, and we are in the range right, then price will likely be able to bounce off here, and then we should be able to scout for longs entry in some of the XLY stock. But bear in mind, right, just because price bounce off here doesn't mean that it's gonna immediately break this entire range, right? It could bounce off here, tap here, then come back down before finally breaking out. But either ways, if you manage to get in here, your entry should be relatively good, right? So let's take a look at some of the XLY names. Personally, I'm in the Starbucks long, so I took a long somewhere here as well. Uh, Let me see. Yep. I do think that Starbucks can hit higher. I'm currently in longs already, so I don't think I will want to push for another long, but I do think that Starbucks will at least reach higher to this level. In fact, I do think that it can break all-time high, right? But I think I'll be taking my profits at about, say, about 110-ish. Next, for TJX, it's currently at demand. Assuming XLY were to be able to bounce here, I do think that there's room for TJX to go higher. I think it's important that you guys, if let's say you all manage to enter TJX, you guys need to manage your trade, right? So let's say you manage to take a long somewhere here, right? There's a real possibility that TJX will come here, tap some sort of resistance, and then sell past you, right? So if you all manage to catch the initial bounce, then remember to maybe set your stop loss to break even, right? At least this will be a trade that doesn't lose you money. Okay, next, after TJX, after XLY come, let's take a look at KIE once, which is very interesting as well. So I think I've caught this last week that KIE is currently at resistance. Last week was sorry, at support. Like in KIE, you can see that we are in a massive range, right? So previously, it bounced here, went up, then came back into demand as well. So maybe last week was say about 11th May Monday, we were here. I say that we're gonna tap this and then bounce exactly like I predicted, right? What else? What else could I have done better, right? So let's take a look at enough bragging. Let's take a look at some of the KIE stocks insurance name. Personally, I'm quite bullish on all of them here. Take a look. We are actually at demand here. In fact, this actually wiped some form of liquidity, and then there's a room to hit higher. So as always, try to look for entry on lower time frame, whatever your entry model say, right? Yeah. Actually, I do think that it's actually ripe for entry already. let me just, if price can pull back to say about 292, I'll be looking for longs, but it must pull back to 292 before reaching this red zone, right? So if it can pull back to 292 before reaching this red zone, then I'll be looking for longs, and my stops is probably below this low. Okay, that's just one trade I will potentially do. R and then next, let's take a look at CB. Taken liquidity, under liquidity, that demand reverse upwards. Personally, for me, I'll be happy to look for longs already. Maybe I will look to do a trade somewhere like this. Maybe about here and then stops below low. That's what I will do, right? But you guys, you do you, man. Next, TRB. Very similar setup to R&R. Tap demand bounce off. If should be able to rally if KIE continue rallying. I don't see much of a setup here personally, so still be watching, still be watching. FAF. This demand is a bit big, so you guys will really have to watch your lower time frame really closely. That's for KIE. We can quickly go through some of the other ETF. Maybe let's take a look at XLC, right? XLC, you can see that we are currently in a range after bouncing off. So there's a shift here and then it starts chopping, right? According to structure, we should still be bullish. You can look for some longs over here, but personally, yeah, I mean, I'll look for longs, but I won't be the most confident in this. XLC, let's take a look. That would be Netflix. I'm currently in an investment in Netflix, so these are my first entry, this is my second entry. Yes, I structured it like a trade hoping it will bounce, but personally, why I even bothered entering Netflix in the first place is because I do think that there's more upside than downside, and currently Netflix is currently undergoing some lawsuit, right? The reason why I structured it as a trade in the first place is because I don't want to anyhow, or rather I don't want to just limit order at a zone without price showing signs that it could reverse. But please guys, if you guys structure something as a trade, do not and if you lose the trade, right, do not hold it as an investment, right? I plan for this to investment but structure it as a trade. Okay, so the like I mentioned, I'll repeat this again. Why did I structure it in a trade despite me planning for it to be an investment in the first place? Is because I do not want to randomly just limit order because at limit order at some demand zone because price can just slice through that zone. So price need to show me some form of reversal pattern to make me confident that it's not gonna slice through it, right? So this is the reversal pattern I notice, right? So I got first entry here and then I got another entry in Netflix. Okay, next let's take a look at Google. I do think that Google is freaking stretch. We can look for longs here, but personally I'm not very convicted on this. I think AT&T it's a possible trade. You just wait to let it come lower to mitigate. I'll be setting maybe an alert here. Okay, that's for XLC. Let's take a look at Jets. Let's take a look at Jets. I think last week we were over here at Jets, so I was calling that we are in demand. We should sell, which as I predicted, right? You guys can just go watch the video. I don't know what else I can do better for you already. So now my call it's currently is coming to demand. You can look to long here. Personally, you can look to long here, but I'm not the biggest fan on Jet as of now, given the Homer's crisis. Because there's a possibility that price could just keep mitigating lower and then just sell off, right? That's very possible as well. But if you guys are bullish, so this is a very good place to go for longs. Next after Jets, let's take a look at XRT, right? XRT, very obvious trade, right? Uh, you can look to catch a quick bounce. Let's see if I have any setup here to gift you guys. BURL. Oh, yep, currently in demand. Did it touch? No, it didn't. But it doesn't matter to me. This entire thing is demand. What's really important is you go lower time frame to hunt for good entries. I'm not seeing any good entries now, so I'll be staying out of BURL for a while. Yes. Let me just check. Uh, yeah, I do think that it can go slightly higher, but that's about it. I do think that it can go to say this red zone. Okay, next VRL. Let's take a look at KR. Same bounce off demand. I do think that for people that are interested can start to hunt for entry, but I think it's important to bear in mind that this is actually a resistance as well. So wait for some level of pullback before you all start hunting for longs, right? So you can maybe you can start hunting for longs maybe in this refined green zone. Well, it's not really refined, but you all get it right. Demand zone, by virtue of the word zone, is just an area. So it could bounce off anywhere in that area. What's important is really going down to the lower time frame and hunt for your zone. Same thing for KC, I believe. Yeah, very interesting setup here. Can hunt for it here. Yeah, that's for XRT. Next, let's take a look at XLF. Yep, XLF. Honestly, not the biggest fan. I will stay out. Hopes. Uh, what I hope to see is something like this, right? Let me just pull back and then reverse higher, right? But until I see some more of reverse bullish reversal pattern here, I won't be interested to take longs. So that's yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all for this week. Quick market recap. Yeah. See you next week, I guess. Thank you. As usual, if you enjoy the video, drop a like, subscribe, follow, whatever, right? Okay. Thank you.